Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on the You podcast. I have an amazing duo today. It is a mother-daughter duo, and I've actually known this duo for quite some time. I haven't talked to Rachel, that's the daughter, and you're about to hear from her. And I asked her a few moments ago before we started this, do you remember me? Because it's been a long time. And she said, yes, thank goodness. And we also have her mother, Kathy. So today it's Kathy and Rachel Elliott. Kathy is owner and founder of Kathy Elliott Coaching. And ironically, so we met a long time ago. I used to be in marketing. I'm actually still in marketing. And Kathy and I met back in Richmond, Virginia. And we've done some work together and we've ran together and we've just known each other forever. And then she's now kind of in a new place in her life and doing some life coaching. You can tell us more about that in a moment, Kathy. And then we also have Rachel, also known as Rach, and we'll let her tell us which one we should call her in a moment. She's speaker, advocate, and resiliency coach. Rachel, I don't know if you know this, but I was in a chapter in a book, and my chapter was resilience.
Wow.
So I love that. Rachel has recently spoken at a TEDx event. When was that event, Rachel?
It was in early April.
Early April. Amazing. At my alma mater, VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. Woohoo! And she's spoken a lot already at the Alliance for Cancer Gene Therapy, I believe that's correct, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and a few others. Mm-hmm. Today, we're going to hear this story, and it's so important that both of them are together. So we're going to go back to what you're doing today in a little bit. I just want to go ahead and launch into the story. When we were hanging out, Kathy, and I know I don't remember everything myself, but I'm sure you do quite vividly. And I recall that, you know, there were some things going on with Rachel, and it was off and on and so much stuff. So I want to actually start with you and just tell us, like, what happened? When did this kind of start, and take us through the journey a little bit?
Yeah, so in 2008, Rachel was 11, and she had been having just some light flu symptoms, and but nothing was conclusive. Nothing really. We went to the doctor, nothing was conclusive. And then a few months later, she contracted a bacteria. And so we went into the emergency room, and they did some testing, and her blood work was all kind of crazy, and rushed us to MCV. And she, for the first few months, went through a lot of different testing. They were suspecting that there was cancer, but nothing came up conclusive. And then she went into a very intense back to life-threatening bacteria, necrotizing fasciitis. Wow. And it was, yeah.
I wanted to ask real quick, so how did you determine that? Like, so these flu-like symptoms were continuing, or just something, like what was the event where you're like, wait, something's not right, this is serious?
Well, the bacteria actually grew, and we had no idea what it was. They thought maybe it was a bug bite at first. I mean, there was a lot of different groups of the doctors. What do you call them? All different teams of doctors trying to identify, including the first suspect was cancer, but because the test came up negative, we couldn't figure out. It was really a medical mystery as to why a healthy girl, she was on the soccer team and trying out for the school, or in the school play, and had been really healthy, and then all of a sudden this bacteria just came and caused an infection that started small and then grew very rapidly in the hospital. So they stopped any kind of continuing diagnoses and went straight to addressing the life-threatening bacteria.
Wow. So it all of a sudden things are just happening super fast.
super fast.
Right.
Next thing we know, she's in an induced coma in the ICU for over 100 days.
Oh.
Not knowing what, yeah.
So then maybe Rachel, I mean, what's happening with you? What do you, I mean, obviously you don't know what's going on because you're in this coma, but you come out of this coma. What were you thinking at that point? Were you scared? What were you feeling?
I think I was most concerned about missing my 9-year-old or what 6-year-old brother's birthday party. No, but just to speak to that a little more, like I woke up and was pretty confused and trying to understand what had happened. And it took a long time for me to really realize the significance of what had happened over the last 3 months and what the time that I had missed and all the things that had changed in my body and the support from my family and the community. And not to mention the fact that I was 11. So really it was a complete drastic change in my life that would continue. But at the time we were just focused on getting through that obstacle and what would come from that and how I could evolve and grow into the next journey and why when I was in 6th grade, most worried about going to a school dance and why I was sitting in a hospital room, like how that could eventually serve me one day. So that's really the focus that we had through it all.
So you were already trying to figure that out. I mean, that probably took a little time though, like to get in the mindset. And so how did you guys determine, okay, this is not good? Because wasn't there some in and out? This is on and off for quite some time.
Yeah. So when she first got, after the 3 months, Rachel was able to get stable. However, even then she had continuing problems of being in an induced coma for such a long time. She was in a supine position and she had brachial plexus in her arm and she couldn't move her arm at all. So she comes out of the hospital again with just not very conclusive data as to why it could even happen. So about 2 more months later, or 3 months later, we noticed some bruising on Rachel's legs and we went back in. And at that point, they were able to identify that she did in fact have leukemia. And so that would be the first place that I think we were able to say, okay, now we have a diagnosis. Now we understand, because the leukemia, we believe, and the doctors went back and forth, we believe that the leukemia was already there and caused the immune suppression that allowed for the bacteria to come. And then by the time the bacteria was so bad and she was on every kind of therapy for antibiotic, antifungal, all these things, that then could not, what do you call the test? I can't even remember the name of it. The bone marrow test didn't, the bone marrow aspiration didn't show the leukemia at that time because of all the other drugs and stuff in her system. So actually the very first diagnosis, we were able to say, okay, ALL now has lots of treatments and has had success, a lot of success in the treatment once with the chemotherapies or whatever. So we have something to work with. So that was the very first place we could say, okay, this is good. This is good. Now we know what to work with and how to.
We had a plan.
We had a plan.
You had a plan. Okay, and so before we talk about that, were there still the moments, because again, I know this was just off and on and off and on, like, oh, I'm getting better, oh, I'm not. I mean, let's be human for a second. And because I know the biggest thing that's happened here is what I really want to share and inspire for others. But let's go back to our human selves. I mean, Kathy, your mom, I've lost a child. That's scary. Did you have feelings of that and a lot of fear?
Oh my gosh, yes, of course. Yeah.
How did you manage that?
Yeah, so I can see it now, being in that ICU in that chair, and I also had lost communication with Rachel because she really was in an induced coma for almost that whole time.
It's like 60 days.
60 days. And so I also couldn't communicate with her, and I would read to her. Remember the book, an author actually, and I posted on CaringBridge at the time, and got lots of feedback from other people. Like Rachel said, the community really helped support me and our whole family. And I would just read to Rach and do whatever I could to try to keep the connection, because that was really important to me, not to feel like I had already lost a child. You know, it was important for me to keep that connection, and I'll tell the story later what I've done too, but just to be able to know that she's still there, she can somehow hear and believe. I had to believe that she would be able to heal.
I love
Because
that.
once, if I lost that, then, you know, she needed me, I needed me, my other children needed me to believe that she could get better.
So that took a lot of strength. And we all know, like, I think it's one of the hardest things that I know I've experienced, and I try to share with other people, that it takes a lot of strength to be strong, but that strength makes you stronger. It's what helps you get through it. But, you know, it's like, if you don't go there, if you don't go in that space, and you always say in this space, it's actually going to be so much harder, right?
Yeah. And then I also knew it was okay to break down in the right place, or with the right company and the right support. But I remember, again, being in the ICU and coming out. I mean, there are sometimes where I would have, you know, even a nurse would start getting broken down, and I felt like I needed to be strong for all of those people. And then there'd be a place where I'd go and just kind of break down.
Allow your space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that sounds really healthy. It's amazing that you knew to do that. And did you say that you had some support trying to help people, did help you understand that, or were you just figuring this out?
Well, there was some at that point, though, not really much help other than, you know, I really banked on my own personal growth. You know, we talk about I've been doing personal development for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I love that you're a personal development junkie, because I am too.
She passed that along to me as
And
well.
Rachel got it even younger than I did. And she talks about the quote that she woke up to and found in her hospital room.
Yeah. And
you want to share that?
I tend to maybe block out some of those moments of just like pure pain and discomfort, but Mom definitely created a space for me to feel all those things. But what I remember most is the mindset that she gave me when I woke up. There was an Eckhart Tolle quote hanging on my wall that she had ripped out of a magazine or printed out at some point while I was asleep, that read, "Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness." And I think reading that at 11 and staring at it every day and trying to grasp what that means, who Eckhart Tolle is, and all of these things, and her just sitting there and like allowing me to feel the moments. And then we would turn back to the quote and talk through how this could maybe help me one day, or the perspective that I was gaining at such a young age, and just trying. I mean, it's taken me over 10 years, and I carry that quote with me every day to really truly understand. And that's an ever evolving journey of viewing obstacles as an opportunity to evolve. But I just am so grateful for that gift at 11, not to mention what it would carry on through as we continue telling this story. But also, like Mom said, just the ability to break down, but then have that vision on the wall, literally, to look at every day was incredibly helpful.
I love that so much. So were there let's go ahead then and talk about techniques. Because I'm super big on, you know, coaching techniques. These are things you can do. One of the biggest things I tell people, and this probably wasn't there for you at this time, but, you know, exercise is obviously one of my favorite ones. I think people know me for that. And it's definitely something that has saved my life and still does. Like, it's huge. It's just part of my lifestyle. What are techniques then that you started developing and that you guys used either separately or together?
Well, for me too, self-care was super important, and not to feel, it's so funny. Last night we talked about, out of the blue, you know, there were times when Rachel, it would be hard for me to leave. We pretty much stayed 24/7 with a child that's 11. And then again, I guess we'll get in, you know, she was had a relapse at 15. with another whole 100-day ICU stay. And so we were there constantly, but I made sure that I took care, I took some time and left when it was hard to leave. And because I knew that if I didn't have some self-care, and some of it was running, I had friends come and meet me at the hospital and run around, and my friends tried to keep me on task there. Exercise, self-care, and then visioning a healthy child. That's what I would do in the midst of, regardless of the surroundings of the ventilators going off and everything else, I would be able to just get in this space of visioning Rachel home with her brothers, or later in life, I would vision her in a wedding dress, or with a baby, as a mother. And that put me in a space of feeling better. Regardless of what happened, I could at least be in a space where I felt better. And from there, I could make better medical decisions, or deal more with people who come in and are devastated when they saw her. Or it was just that mindset and that visioning and knowing that no matter what was going to happen, I could choose to feel better now and do these visioning, because it really was her story. It wasn't about, I couldn't make her get better, but I could make myself feel better enough to be able to be better support to her and the rest of the family.
Yeah, 100%. That is something else I really try to inspire, is that when you take care of yourself through the various methods, you can handle life so much better, because life's still going to happen, and for many of us, it's been harder. Yes. And that's unfortunate in many ways, and fortunate for everybody else in a million ways, and for ourselves, because again, we can handle things in a lot more gracefully. I think that I know I have learned so much about dealing with issues and not letting it get me down. I'm okay to have the awareness of a human feeling. And because there was a time, and I'm curious if you dealt with this, there was a time where I just learned to go into the positive space, and I was not feeling or having the awareness. So I kind of skipped a step, but maybe that was the way I needed to do it then. And now I'm able to have awareness of a not so good feeling, issue, moment, whatever it is, and be okay with it, and then decide, okay, I'm done letting that take my joy. I'm like, I don't know why it's happening, but I'm ready to shift that mindset. So talk to us, Rachel, about that for you.
Yeah, that
the formula would be
Yeah.
good to talk about.
I mean, that resonates with me deeply. I think I very much so had these experiences in life that there wasn't time maybe necessarily to feel everything, because I was so focused on getting better and overcoming. And I definitely had those moments. I mean, there's been countless breakdowns or moments of, I can't believe this is happening again. How is this my reality? All of that. But recently, when I was preparing for this TED Talk, I kind of came up with this formula that I feel like has allowed me to really feel those things and get through it. And it starts with acceptance for whatever obstacle is being presented. Like you were mentioning, you have to feel it, you have to accept it. And I think when you are able to get into that space, you almost find ways to be grateful for it. And that's kind of where that quote comes in, right? And so starts with this whole acceptance and gratitude component. And then, like you were mentioning, you get to that place that you choose to be positive, you choose to be joyful, and positivity and finding things to be joyful about, or happy and loving towards, were things that carried me through. And my TED Talk, I mentioned getting a new puppy, or playing silly games with my brother, and joking with the doctors and nurses. That was always so important to me, to have that spirit, and think it was 100% a guidance from my mom to be able to be there. And then lastly is this compassion piece, right? Like you were mentioning, adversity and struggles in life are guaranteed. We all have them, coming off of a really trying year for our entire population. We all can feel that. And I think when you're able to see it as a way to kind of ground us all together. Like our common struggles make us all human, and be able to see from other people's perspectives and resonate with others and be able to help or encourage others through your own struggles. It almost softens your heart, mind, spirit towards others. And so those are kind of the three components that I think has allowed me to be in those really tough places, but choose to persevere through. It's definitely a challenge and an evolving journey that we all have to work towards every day. But those are kind of the formula components that I've discovered throughout my learned experience.
I love that. And oh wait, I do have one. So the first chapter in my book, you're writing your book, right?
Yes, we need to.
Yes. No, I'm not kidding. Like, you got to get on this. I'll help you if you need help. But and mine is a very small piece. I actually hope I'm working on more. I wanted a new book out by now, and I don't have it. But anyway, it's coming. But the first chapter in this book is love. And the reason for that is, is that love right behind you?
No, but that is love. But I have, look.
Thank you.
I did not plan that. It was orange, so it did get in the orange section.
Orange book stack.
Oh my gosh, yes, of course I've read it. And this was not planned.
that was not planned, audience. Just so you know. But it's interesting, I wrote, and I'm gonna have to put my glasses on for this part of getting older. Okay. A day finally came when I decided to not allow that pain to be a part of me anymore. I accepted and forgave. That moment gave me freedom to love. And what I had to discover was there was an abrasive side. And it's interesting, and I'm not judgmental in any way, but you can see things differently in people once you've gone through stuff, right? And I'll see something going on with someone and I'll be like, oh, I was like that. They need time. And it's helped me to learn that and be more forgiving of that of those people and give them that time, because I needed time. It took me going pretty rock bottom, and I was very depressed. I became super depressed. And this is years after losing Hayes, and a million other things happened after losing Hayes. Hayes was just the big one, my 4.5-month-old son. But it took a lot of time and scary moments of, I'm not sure if I can handle this anymore. Moments, scary, uncomfortable. I had a lot of fear. And then I started digging in and getting into my personal development junkie side. And that was already there, but I think I'd lost it for a while because I didn't know where to go. I felt very alone. And that is what led me to understanding that I needed to see things through a different lens. I needed to have love for others. I needed to understand that I don't know their story.
Right.
And it's not fair for me to decide what that story is. Like, just let it be, appreciate, and know that not everybody's where you are. And goodness gracious, I can't wait to see where I'm going. Like, I'm so much better now, but it's only going to get better because it's the path I want to take. But it's through that love in my heart and for others, and trying to understand that that really helped me a lot. It sounds like that helps you guys as well.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's talk about, what are you doing now to help other people? Like, this story, obviously, you've got to keep telling the story. No one has your story. No one has my story. I think there's a lot of feelings sometimes like, oh, why does somebody want to hear my story? Or a million people talk about that, but our stories are very different. And I think you've already witnessed that the more you share, the more people you help. So how are you guys helping each other? And actually, Kathy, we'll start with you. Like, because you're both, again, doing this kind of life coaching type stuff. Where are you going with that?
So, and one thing I do want to back up and mention is the immunotherapy that we were able to identify after Rachel's second relapse, because I think that was really a key point in helping us to kind of elevate past the cancer portion. You know what I mean?
What did you call it?
immunotherapy. So
Okay,
Rachel had the second relapse and had another long stay in the hospital and was very sick for a long time, based on mostly the cancer responded well to her treatment, but her immune system did not. And so she got really, really sick. And she stopped the chemo. We made a decision to stop the chemo because the cancer was no longer there, but the chemo was really breaking down her whole system.
Oh.
So I don't know exactly where I was going with this, but to do the research, and then so she did have a second relapse in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, to make a decision to do something different was how we came up, between the doctors and our research, we came up with doing this trial at the University of Pennsylvania, which is called CAR T cell therapy, and it's immune therapy. And you describe it best because you say what it is.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because we mentioned all of this medical trials that I had when I was at age 11, but it continued all the way through my young adult life at age 21, which gave me the ability to understand a lot of these things more and ask questions and be intrigued by the different treatment possibilities. One being CAR T cell therapy that Mom was just mentioning. And it's about taking one's own T cells, and they genetically modify them in a lab to then be re-injected into one's body and immediately attack any present cancer cells. So it's immunotherapy, gene therapies are becoming a new pillar of cancer treatment. And it's really just an emerging field we are incredibly grateful for, and believe that it's caused a forever remission for me. So grateful there.
Yeah.
Well, that's so amazing that it almost brings tears to my eyes, because that we have that capability, that you guys chose to be brave to just jump in with that, because it's got to be a little scary too, like how much do they know, like.
Well, yeah, and how it affects later life, including fertility and stuff that she talks about later. So the point I think I was getting to is to not go down the rabbit hole of thinking, oh my gosh, this is happening again. To step back, say what, like Rachel says, and said, okay, we're addressing this again. This could be really difficult. Yeah. However, we can choose to do something different. We can look at, find a different solution, and I think that's really important to identify that, there's places where you just can't do the same thing anymore. And it happens in all stages of life, not just, of course, on this kind of difficult, really challenging thing, but even work life or whatever, when you need to make different changes, get past or make changes, just make change in your life.
Yeah,
transformation. Yeah.
Change is hard. We know that. And yeah, most people, they're like, no, just keep doing, it's kind of working,
Right.
And the reality of it is like, okay, that was good then, but we've got to make a change if we really want to make a dramatic difference. What I'm loving about that though, and that bravery, is that that's going to help so many other people.
Exactly.
Being part of this. But that's huge. And gosh, I love that.
So to remain curious and open throughout everything. Is curious and open. And so that's what I'm hoping to teach people, remain curious and open, to believe in themselves, because we all have the same power, as we all have the power to be our very best selves. And so that's what I hope to help others.
Yeah.
I said in themselves.
We do have the power. We have to have the desire, and we have to keep that ego out of the way and stay humble through the process. I think that's a big part of it. But I love that. So that's kind of where your life coaching, I think it's transformational coaching,
right?
A name you're giving it. Yeah. And so you're doing workshops and different things like that.
Yeah.
And so, and I think you have a blog and a podcast as well.
Blog. I have a
working on the podcast.
We're working on the podcast and the book. the book and the podcast.
Look,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to do
You're an
that.
inspiration. You're an inspiration, Kira.
Oh gosh, no, I appreciate that. And then Rach, let's talk about, because we talked about this earlier. Is it Rach or Rachel? Tell us, what do we go by?
So either. I've been called Rach my entire life, just from family and friends. But if you look at the last two letters of my first name and the first two letters of my last name, they're the same. So in creating a website, you would type EL twice. So that's why I went by Rach Elliott for the website. But either is great.
Okay, no, thank you so much. And so it is RachElliott.com is your website. Kathy, yours is
KathyElliottCoaching.com.
.com. Okay, good. So Rach, then tell us, what is your vision? What is it you want to do to help others? Because I think we're all in that same space, the three of us, that we care so deeply about helping others, that we're willing to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there. And I know I'm still learning how to be even more vulnerable. Like, I'm still working. It's so hard, like, to go, am I telling everybody everything? Like, no, like, and it's a tough one. So talk to us about this decision and that you've made, because this is pretty much a career going on here.
Yeah. I spent a lot of my life just trying to get back to whatever normal was for me, from being sick at age 11 to, again, in my early adulthood life. I spent a lot of time, like we mentioned earlier, just getting to the next phase of normal. And once I graduated from college and entered into a corporate career and have really enjoyed and learned there, I found myself missing a piece of purpose, and kind of realizing that the most I knew in my 20 years of life was basically how to be a sister and how to be a cancer survivor. And so it was kind of this piece of resiliency that I was learning and experiencing and choosing to be positive every day, that I was realizing it's not as known as I thought it was from what my reality had been. And I'd done many speaking in the past for different foundations, but I had never really told my story from my perspective of these key principles that we believe so inherently to be so helpful in my success in becoming healthy today. So that is what I'm hoping, through vulnerability and continuing to share, that I can share with the world and hopefully inspire others just to choose to persevere through obstacles in life, whether it's just a bad day, like we mentioned, or life-threatening or different changes, mental health concerns or challenges, anything that you're going through. I think just helping people realize that they have this ability within to become more resilient by design, and use these principles that I talk about that have helped me, and piece it together for their own story. And so that is what I'm continuing to hope to share, and through speaking and connections directly, however it comes about, just kind of letting it have a life of its own and seeing where it takes me.
I love that. So the formula is called Resilient by Design, or that's your platform, or
that was the name of the TED Talk. So it's a resiliency formula that I came up with, and at the end I mentioned that using the components can help you in turn become more resilient by design.
Well, I love that because it expresses intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people walk around like, oh, I wish I felt this and I wish I felt that. And it's like, you probably can. You know, if you want to, you can design that by learning the techniques. I wish so much, and maybe you can inspire this somehow, starting there in Virginia. I wish that we learned a lot of these techniques as children. That they don't teach it in school. And bless our parents' hearts. I mean, Kathy, she's so fortunate to have you, because you understood these things, you know, with your personal development junkiness. But my parents didn't, and I'm not faulting them by no means, but it's got to start somewhere. And the more that we can do that, it can snowball into something very beautiful. And to be able to bring that to our schools, I really think it should be a part of
Absolutely.
a class of some sort. They do it in, I don't know where it is. I wish I could find the article, but I ran across something and where they do some of these things in Europe, like they teach breathing techniques and
Oh, yeah.
meditation. And, I use breathing all the time. And it once you learn how to even do it, like, gosh, even just driving down the road, it's like, oh, that practically felt like a massage.
Right.
It's so good to learn how to really inhale and really exhale with sound, just different things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So now I have to ask from each of you, and I didn't tell you this in advance, but I can guarantee you're going to have great responses. And it's okay if you repeat something you've said. I would love to know from each of you 3 things that you would advise. So for you, Kathy, I would like it to be from a mom's perspective. And happy Mother's Day. I know that was in the past.
Thank you.
The month of May, I'm celebrating mothers, which is why you guys are here. But I want to know from a mom's perspective, can you talk to the other parents out there? Just help them understand what they can do to not only help themselves, but to help their children.
Yeah. Yeah. So the mother job has been my absolute favorite of all. And I have 2 other sons. I have 2 sons as well. That bookend Rachel. She's the middle child and only girl. And
they're their protectors.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do just that.
Yes.
And I did want to mention too, as you were thinking about it, as you were talking about learning stuff as a child, even in my generation, we didn't talk about it much, but my dad, I remember on his bookshelf, and I would get it. It was the first intro into personal development, had Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, yes.
The Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer, and Psycho-Cybernetics, which is one of my favorite books. And my youngest son came home from caddying the other day and he said, there's this book I want to read. And some golfer had recommended it to him. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I'll get you that book.
Oh, that's
very
awesome.
excited about that. But so I think the first thing is really just to take a breath. And any kind of challenge with the children, and my gosh, right now there's so much going on with childhood depression, and with what's going on in the collective right now, it's even more. There's so much more challenges for children being home from school and not being able to have the social aspect that they have. And it's teaching really just to take a deep breath and say, this is not all, we can deal with this. We can deal with whatever it is. I remember again, going into the hospital and thinking about Rachel's hair. Rachel has this gorgeous, beautiful hair, and into the oncology floor or whatever. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to lose all her hair. And then the second thought is, that is nothing. So what? Right. She'll figure it out, and it'll be an experience that she'll grow from, So taking a deep breath, understanding what you're dealing with, and accepting really what Rachel has just talked about, and then feeling what you need to feel. There's going to be challenges in her. Anytime you see your child, and we all know this, in any kind of pain or struggle, it feels like you. It feels like you. And you'd rather have it be you. I had stitches in my head one time when I was really young, and I remember my dad, I was in the ER, and I could hear him say, he was holding my hand, and I could hear him say, I wish it was me. Oh. And that's what and it was just stitches in my head. But that's what we do as parents. We want to take on all the pain and the discomfort and the challenges, but just really realizing, taking a deep breath, really realizing that you can get through everything. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder when I'm talking to God or whatever, and I think I'm such an empath that perhaps, tearing up saying this, that perhaps there was something to that, for me to focus more on the story and helping other people, that maybe I wouldn't have maybe it would have been difficult, to be a mom. I think I would have been a great mom, and I'm not trying to say that, but you just made me think of that, because I do feel for other people so much sometimes. And I'll feel for the guy standing on the corner.
I know we could, Rach and I are both empaths as well, I think.
Yes, it's intense, right?
Yeah. And then there's even this feeling, and this is another part of being a parent of a sick child or whatever, Rachel survived, but sometimes I have guilt feelings for the other parents whose children didn't survive, particularly in that cancer world, when you're watching these other children go through treatments and learn them. And Rachel had a very good friend who didn't make it through his cancer journey. And it's, then you've got that to deal with.
But what you're doing is helping other people. And
absolutely.
That's what we just have to keep remembering. I pray all the time, like, help me help people on a much grander scale, because I'm willing.
Right. Yes.
I think I'm able, sometimes that's scary too. Like, oh, how grander do I want that to be? Maybe this is just enough, but I am willing. And I say that over and over to myself and in my prayers and whatever, that if that's where I need to go and it needs to be on a gigantic scale, I would really, I guess I'll do it. I just want to keep.
Of course you will.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah,
but I love that, and your commitment to what you've done. But yeah, it's hard, those feelings of, could I have done something differently or whatever, and taking the place of your daughter and that sort of thing. So did you want to add anything, any other advice?
No, but I love your, how can I serve is something I keep in my head, is how can I serve?
Yes.
And very rarely have neither Rach nor I, like, why is this happening to me? We really never have had that thought, because it is, it's brought so much goodness and light to our life, actually.
So much goodness.
Yeah.
That
and joy even at points, because it's like the dark and the light. The darkness brings about the light, or you can bring the light to the darkness. And there really is not bad or good. It's just where we are. And we get to see that when you're in the midst of a big challenge.
Yeah. One of the things that I went from was, because of my mindset, which is that this is so much about this whole thing, I went from having a lot of bad days to I don't usually have a bad day. I might have a moment. I'm not going to say everything's perfect. It's not perfect, but it's how I handle it and how I choose to think about it, as you were saying, that just changes everything. So you're able, and we got to drive this home, like, you are able to make that change in your life if you want to. You've just got to learn the techniques to work with the mindset. So, Rach, what do we need to know? Like, what are those three key things we need? Because I know we could keep talking forever. What are those three key things that if no one hears anything else that you've said, what do you want them to hear?
Yeah, great question. I would say, just you can do it. You're already doing it. Like, when you get into that place of you really can achieve and overcome when you put your mind to it. Like you were just mentioning, we all have that power. It's just an active choice we make daily. And then to give yourself grace and compassion through it. That's another key component. It's like you were mentioning, it's not always perfect. Nothing's always perfect. You have those moments of breakdown. It's so key to do that. And then just really driving home this thought of compassion. I think we've talked about it a lot throughout this podcast, but I am so grateful for all of my struggles, because it allows me to see past the surface. And that's so part of being human, right? Like, we all need to be able to see past what you can objectively see, and have that compassion for others and understanding. And I think it allows us to be collectively better, independently better, spiritually better, you are just able to see more and have that perspective in a different lens. So all of that combined, including my resiliency formula, including everything we talked about, I want to briefly, like Mom mentioned earlier, saying that at times my struggles weren't her story. And I think that as a parent is something that is, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine how incredibly hard that was to say, at the end of the day, this is Rachel's story, and her giving me that is how I'm able to speak about this today. And now she's able to tell her story through her lens and her perspective as a parent, not to mention I don't want to give away your age, but however long other things that she's dealt with before. This is just one journey in her life. Majority of this is my journey. But everything that had happened in her life that made her who she was gave her that ability to conquer this challenge and give me the strength to conquer it at 11. So it's both of our stories independently and together. And I'm just grateful for it all.
That's amazing. I was reading something the other day about how parents need to remember that their child's story is not their story. It's a part of their story, obviously, but it's not, whatever they're going through, that's not you, that's them. And to understand that separation and then still to be able to be your best. So I love how you say that, going through this together and independently.
Right.
That's really beautiful. You've just hit on so many. I was jotting down all these key: active choice. I love all of that. How can okay, so you got through that. We're all good. I think what we want to leave here with, because again, I can't wait. When I come back to Richmond, we're going to hang out.
Come on.
Yeah.
I'll just come stay at your house if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.
And y'all have somewhere to stay if you come to San Diego.
Yes, come soon.
Where can people find each of you? We mentioned it earlier. I know it's KathyElliottConsulting.com.
Oh, KathyElliottCoaching.com.
Coaching. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Coaching.com. I should have had that written down here. And then RachelElliott.com. And you each have Facebook, Instagram. Where are you active in social media? Where should people reach out?
I am Kathy Elliott, Instagram, Kathy Elliott Coaching Facebook page, and Kathy Elliott Facebook regular.
Yeah.
I'm finding my place in social media, figuring that all out.
It's a job.
I know it is.
You don't have your TikTok?
No TikTok yet.
No TikTok.
You should
Maybe
do it
YouTube.
together. Yeah.
YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, I've got a YouTube station that I'm starting, and I'm going to start my podcast like now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Here we go.
Yes.
This is perfect. This is perfect. And Rach, where should everybody find you?
Yes, website is rachelelliott.com, and then Instagram is rach_Elliott.
Awesome. I will put all of this in the show notes.
Yes.
Perfect.
You just click there. And then I'm so grateful for this time. I feel like it's a reconnection too.
Yes.
It's beautiful when you have great friendships and you're always friends, you're always, that connection is there. And to be able to speak to you, Rach, as a beautiful young woman, I am so inspired by you. I'm inspired by both of you so much. Again, I keep getting tears in my eyes through this podcast. But I'm emotional, but I just love you both so much, and just keep on keeping on. And I'll get this posted, and feel free to just keep sharing your story to the world. We need you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.